Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Wednesday, September the 10th, 2025, the 253rd day of the year, and I hope yours is going well thus far. It's World Suicide Prevention Day, established back in 2003 by the International Association for Suicide Prevention, along with the World Health Organization, to raise awareness and help promote prevention efforts. I didn't see this back on Monday Night Football, but Chicago Bears quarterback Caleb Williams, who commonly sports painted fingernails, if you didn't know, had his nails painted with the suicide prevention logo, the suicide prevention colors, as well as 988, the number of the suicide and crisis lifeline. 988. Call, or you can even text if you're experiencing issues. You have to reach out for help. Very important. 988 is that number. In the headlines, another day, another judge gets in the way of President Trump's plans. This time, a federal judge ruling against the president's firing of Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook over allegations of cooking the books. Well, allegations of mortgage fraud. Judge Gia Cobb, appointed by President Biden, said the alleged claims of fraud predate Cook's time in office at the Federal Reserve and cannot be used as a reason to remove her from that position, and that Trump's abrupt firing also violated her due process rights because she wasn't given notice or given a chance to challenge her firing. And overnight, Poland said it has shot down Russian drones that violated its airspace during a Russian attack on the neighboring Ukraine, in what is a major provocation for Europe and NATO. Poland's prime minister said he's invoked Article 4 of NATO, meaning the alliance will now have to meet to discuss the situation and what the next steps could be as the world awaits some kind of resolution in this long, ongoing war on Ukraine. More than 2 weeks after a young Ukrainian refugee was senselessly murdered in Charlotte, North Carolina by a lifelong criminal, and a week after I urged more national coverage of it, everyone is now talking about it. But not everyone, of course, is providing all of the facts. We'll start with last night's Finnerty.
23-year-old Ukrainian refugee Irina Zarutska slaughtered by a man named DeCarlos Brown on a train, by someone who never should have been on that train. DeCarlos Brown had been arrested at least 14 times before. Here are his 14 separate mugshots. Think about that. And after he was released from prison early in 2020, he was diagnosed formally with schizophrenia. But if you are a Democrat, these are the people that you want wandering the streets of your city, people like this.
DeCarlos Brown has been charged with crimes no fewer than 14 times, dating back to 2011, including for armed robbery, felony larceny, breaking and entering, and shoplifting. Brown had previously served 5 years in prison for a robbery with a deadly weapon charge, and he had also forfeited bonds 3 different times, twice in 2014 and once in 2023. Despite all of this past documented criminal history, when Brown was arrested yet again in January of this past year, a Democrat judge, who I will add was a strong supporter of former Vice President Kamala Harris, released this insane criminal once again without requiring him to pay any bail. He simply had to sign a written promise to return for his court hearing.
Yeah, he didn't do that. DeCarlos Brown never should have been on that train, and this ebbs on crazy. But according to Democrats and the corporate media, this is another case being used by those evil MAGA Republicans to push their anti-crime agenda, like somehow being against crime is a bad thing in this country.
Horrific new video of a Ukrainian refugee's murder caught on camera. It is absolutely horrific. Trump is now seizing on this to push his nationwide crackdown.
That is insane. If my producer told me to do that, I wouldn't read the copy. That's how crazy that is. But if you work at CNN, you read it and you lie. The media are so upset that there are cameras out there on the streets as well. Cameras on the streets, in stores, on trains. And all these cameras are recording these brutal crimes. Mark Caputo writing about this in Axios, quote, "The rising number of surveillance cameras in public spaces, including on Charlotte's light rail, has become a big accelerant in these cases," meaning the media are more upset that the murder in Charlotte was recorded than they are about the actual murder itself. Think about that. Caputo went on to say that MAGA influencers are drawing repeated attention to violent attacks to elaborate and elevate the issue of urban crime and accuse mainstream media of undercovering shocking cases, to which we say we aren't accusing the mainstream media of undercovering this story. We are accusing them of not covering this story at all until they were shamed into doing so today. As of yesterday, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Associated Press, CNN, and MSNBC had yet to cover this story even a single time. Not once. The story of a black career criminal with schizophrenia brutally murdering a 23-year-old blonde Ukrainian refugee. That's not an accusation. That's a fact. And the media aren't covering this story because of the races involved in this story. Reverse them, you've got yourself a story. If you work at CNN and a black man kills a white woman, we're sorry, that's just not a story over there. It's also bizarre that Democrats, of all people, have suddenly abandoned a Ukrainian refugee. We thought Democrats loved Ukraine. I seem to remember Democrats waving the Ukrainian flag after we passed yet another spending bill, sending billions of dollars to Ukraine to stop Ukrainians from being killed.
Rob Finnerty is the host of Finnerty, 8 p.m. Eastern on Newsmax, and we will hear from Rob again in a little bit on a completely different subject. Charlotte is a Democrat-run city and is home to one of the largest Ukrainian populations in America. I think I mentioned that last week when I first mentioned the story. Ukrainians that already lived there immediately started having their relatives fleeing the war come to Charlotte and stay with them. There are Ukraine support rallies and prayer vigils that happen in downtown Charlotte all of the time. It's actually uptown. Call it uptown Charlotte, downtown Charlotte, kind of like Dallas. Anyway, if the races were reversed, as Rob said, you can bet it would have immediately been a much bigger story. It would not have taken more than 2 weeks. Greg Kelly's coverage went deep into the racial aspect of the story. At this point in the show, he's looking at the train surveillance video that you've most likely seen by now.
And every step of the way, he's talking about his motive. I got that white girl. I got that white girl. Well, that is ugly, but I'm not surprised. When I saw it, I'm not surprised that there was a racial component. No. I would say, though, that that's very important, don't you think? I mean, this is a hate crime. She was stabbed because of things she can't control. The color of her skin. She was born that way. This is very, very relevant. This is very, very important. We are talking about it. 1 or 2 other, possibly, networks, maybe this component, social media, portions of it. CBS News decided this was not newsworthy. No coverage. NBC News, this is where, like, you know, the big evening broadcasts, yeah, they talked about it, but the whole issue of race, which everything seems to be about race, except if it's involving a white victim and a black assailant. Same thing for ABC News. It's a pretty big component, don't you think? I know it is, and I believe I know why it happened. Because of somebody who offered false hope for one moment, Barack Hussein Obama, the 44th President of the United States. He ignited this crap on purpose, this racial hate where there was no racial hate. America had come a very long way. And with him, wow, that's like cherry on top. Race relations are almost as good as you can get. But he destroyed them on purpose so he could retain power. And I believe I can prove it. In 2008, when he was elected, he had overwhelming support from the African American community. Well, that's 2011. You can see there, black voters don't like him that much anymore. 58% approve, 42% disapprove. Now let's compare the number to 2008 or 2009, if you don't mind. Okay. Got the other one? Look, it was at 92% when he got in there. 92%. And it dropped. It dropped to 58, 42. Now you can't win. You can't win if you're Barack Hussein Obama and a Democrat and your approval with black people goes down that much. So they needed something. They needed something fast. They needed a gimmick, and they needed an illusion, and they found one. Trayvon Martin. The Trayvon Martin hoax. It was a hoax. This sweet, innocent boy on his way to get Skittles, and George Zimmerman was just hunting black children. It's all wrong. It's all a lie. This man, this kid, was a menace to George Zimmerman. Almost killed him. It was clearly self-defense. You got to look at this, man. You can look it up. It was done for political reasons. Barack Obama was losing black support, so they manufactured a race incident when there was no race. You can read about it or watch the movie, The Trayvon Martin Hoax, by our friend Joel Gilbert.
So Greg goes on to show clips from that movie. Then he talks about the Breonna Taylor case, Michael Brown, some others, and George Floyd. And then here's the close.
And it was all the master of this stuff, the one who initiated it, was Barack Obama. Why? Because he was conflicted about his own situation. Those voices within the black community arguing that I wasn't ready, or I was too radical, or too mainstream, or not quite black enough. Yeah, that's his problem, not our problem. You had to write books about it. You can't just... He had to wreck society so he could keep his power and his prestige and his status and his money.
Greg Kelly reports, 9 p.m. Eastern on Newsmax. Check it out tonight. Rob Schmitt spoke about the Democrats' agenda, the Trump administration, and more with Texas Senator Ted Cruz.
When you show the mug shot, and we're going to bring it up here, the mug shots of this man, how many times he's had his picture taken while in custody of the police, and now he's facing federal charges. At what point does a sophisticated society decide that somebody like this, no matter what, cannot be back on the streets, that he should be either put in jail or just put down? What purpose does a person with this many mugshots have to even exist, is my question.
Look, it's simple common sense. If you want crime to go down, you arrest the criminals, you put them in jail, you get them off the street. That is true everywhere. I'll tell you, just 2 weeks ago, I traveled to Latin America. I went to El Salvador. You know, El Salvador in 2015 had the highest murder rate in the world. The murder rate in El Salvador was 100 homicides per 100,000 people. In other words, every year, 1 out of 1,000 Salvadorians was murdered. It was the murder capital of the world. President Bukele came in and said, we are going to turn this around. He went after MS-13. He went after the cartels. I toured the CICOT maximum security prison where he arrested the gang members. He put them in there, incarcerated them, and the murder rate plummeted. When I was there this past year, the murder rate in El Salvador was 1.9 murders per 100,000 people, a 98% drop. Amazing. Why? Because he arrested the murderers and he put them in jail and he got them off the street. It's true in El Salvador. It's true in the United States. Yeah. And the Democrats' proposition, bizarrely, they get on a plane and they fly to El Salvador, and what do? They have margaritas with an MS-13 gang member, and they say, right, if you elect Democrats, we'll get more of these gang members and release them in your neighborhood.
Yeah, they're so backwards on this and generally on this policy. It's just unbelievable. I want to play CNN's Van Jones defending some of these policies like cashless bail. Take a listen to this.
Would you have felt better if there had been cash bail and the mom had come and put down $1,000 to let him out? It's not about cashless bail or no cashless bail. It's about the fact that we don't know how to deal with people who are hurting in the way this man was hurting. Hurt people hurt people. What happened was horrible, but it becomes an opportunity for people to jump on bandwagons.
That's what they all believe now. That's a pretty standard. And if you want to listen to Van Jones and you want to feel sorry and you want to have a bleeding heart for everybody in this world, I hope you're ready to live in a society where a ton of people die, because that's what comes from that. That's that ideology. It never gets fixed, and you get a lot of dead people.
Look, criminals hurt people. If you want this hurt people, go and have a love-in on your own time. But government has a responsibility to keep people safe. Yeah. I'm reminded of, I got to admit, I'm a fan of the TV show The Simpsons. And Bart Simpson is playing a video game called Axe Murder. And he's going around and he's chopping people up as an axe murderer. And right. at the end of the game, it says, "Oh no, trial in Texas." And he starts hitting a button, change of venue. And it's game over with a hangman's noose. It's real simple. You commit a crime where you have people that enforce the law, you go to jail, you murder someone, you go to death row. That's how you keep people safe.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz on Newsmax. And Attorney General Pam Bondi did say in a statement that she has urged prosecutors in North Carolina to pursue the maximum sentence that they're able to get against Irina's killer, DeCarlos Brown, who has been charged with committing an act causing death on a mass transportation system, which, if he's convicted, does make him eligible for the death penalty or life in prison. Or, and this is just me saying this, or he could get off on an insanity deal. His family has repeatedly reported incidents, mental health issues, and that he had been hearing voices and had schizophrenia. However, he's also been arrested at least 14 times before and served 5 years in prison for some other violent crime. And switching gears now.
Does this video scare you guys? Yes or no?
Yes. Rob Schmitt also spoke with Florida Congresswoman Paulin Luna, who questioned members of the U.S. military about UFOs, or UAPs, as the government calls them now, unidentified aerial phenomena, and a video of a Hellfire missile hitting a shiny object off the coast of Yemen in October of last year.
I talked to 5 shaken witnesses who described a massive triangular craft larger than a football field that hovered silently for about 45 seconds over their entry control point before shooting away at impossible speed.
That guy doesn't sound crazy, does he? He's a former military police officer. Congresswoman Paulin Luna led this hearing today, and it's good to see you again. Aside from that story, what did we learn today, Congresswoman?
Well, first of all, there needs to be definitely stronger legislation to protect whistleblowers. As you heard, every single one of these people have had either stories, or we have actually stated in our opening statement that we've heard from multiple military personnel that they simply aren't given the protections that are needed by Congress. But more importantly, as you saw in some of the footage that Representative Burleson released, we have questions. Why is Congress being denied access to this information? We have one of the biggest, most bipartisan bicameral missions here to uncover and discuss this topic. Recently, over 37 government employees, officials, former military, even members of the intelligence community have come forward. And remember, our own Secretary of State was actually stated saying that these people are at high levels of government and are credible in regards to their testimony that they're bringing forward. So, look, I'm not speculating. I'm just going off of what the witnesses are saying, but the evidence speaks for itself.
I mean, he just described like this huge triangular object the size of a football field. I mean, this is a military police officer, very well spoken. Yeah. Doesn't sound like he's got some kind of agenda. We've heard about so many that I remember the one that was on 60 Minutes, the orb that came out of the ocean that stopped in midair and went forward. What do you think is going on here? What's in your mind?
Definitely, I'm trying to get to the bottom of that. You know, what's been interesting today, Rob, is that we also had people, George Knapp, that brought forward previously. Yep. A little bit of the U.S. population knew about it. Maybe 1% of these documents were from a Russia, apparently UAP investigative program that they had set up prior to the fall of the Soviet Union that were smuggled out of Russia. So those documents have also been made public. But, you know, my whole objective here is, A, how do we know that it's not false information? Obviously, we think that it's valid based on what the witnesses have provided, and then also previous reports, I think, that came from the DIA. And so, look, we have a big job ahead of us, but my goal and objective, you know, we're trying to provide transparency for the American people. They have these questions, and we're going to help them get answers.
That is Florida Representative Paulin Luna, a former member of the House Freedom Caucus, who is also pushing the law to ban congressional trading. I've said this before, but you may remember last year when we heard similar testimony from other military members and they brought in those alleged mummified aliens. Remember that? Testimony like we just heard from military pilots and mummified aliens on Capitol Hill. Not at some, UFO fan conference, but on Capitol Hill. And then the entire government and frankly, the entire country was just like, oh, okay. I've been saying for over a year now, we kind of need some follow-up on this. Now we are finally getting it. And it is fascinating. All right, I said we'd hear more from Rob Finnerty as well, because Finnerty spoke with Border Czar Tom Homan about an interview that he had over on Morning Schmo.
Hugo Hernandez Mendez, an illegal alien from Guatemala, was just denied bail, charged with first-degree murder after killing a 19-year-old woman in Maryland. He crushed her skull, then he threw her body off a bridge. These are the people that should not be here in this country. These are the people that the Trump administration are targeting. But at MS Now, they are criticizing our next guest by claiming that ICE agents were arresting people walking out of church.
I see on the show this morning you have Governor Healy talking about ICE doing enforcement operations at a church. False. Didn't happen.
They were parked there. They did not do an operation there. She said they were parked in a public space legally.
But to say that and to push that out there puts fear in the immigrant community.
But we would appreciate all of the information, all of it, all of the data that you say you have.
I've done this show several times. Every time on your show, I speak with integrity, I speak with honesty, and I speak with facts. And you using the term disappearing people
well,
is
that's
disgusting.
What's happened. That happened to the group that was sent to El Salvador.
U.S. citizens get arrested every day. U.S. citizens get arrested by police every day. Are they being disappeared?
So just to be clear, ICE agents were not arresting people coming out of a church. But if they were, and it was somebody like Hugo Hernandez Mendez, I'd be all for it. But ICE agents were parked legally near a church. There's a difference. But that's all that MS Now and people like Mika have left as they continue to celebrate criminals over American citizens. Joining us now for more Border Czar Tom Homan. Tom, good to see you.
Hey, how you doing?
Tom, I'm good. You know, that all day long, that soundbite was played over and over. The left think that Mika really got you, that she took you down today. How do you respond to that?
Look, I went on that show. I'll go on any show. I'll talk to any show. Matter of fact, I love doing the hate shows because I can set the facts straight. And like I said, I brought facts to that show. And the bottom line is, she used the term disappearing people several times, and it disgusts me. Because we're not disappearing people, we're enforcing the law. And we're taking public safety threats off the street every day. ICE has taken thousands of public safety threats off the streets of our neighborhoods across this country, keeping President Trump's promise to make America safe again. So if she wants to use that hateful rhetoric, she wants to push a false narrative, I'm calling her out on it, in which I did.
Okay, we put this together for you. Take a listen to this.
If you're not speaking up for this man, there will be no one left to speak up for you.
All of us are subject to essentially being disappeared to a foreign prison for the rest of our lives.
They want to have the American people say it's okay to just disappear people. Here's the thing. If they can disappear Mr. Abrego Garcia, then they can disappear you.
Tom, it's not even proper English. Can you explain where this new term on the left, disappearing people, came from? Like you're some SS leader and you're snatching people, off the streets who are never heard from again. What is this? Where did this come from? Disappearing people.
I have no idea where it came from, but let me say this. I started in board.
You'd agree it's stupid, right? It just sounds stupid.
It's ignorant. It's ignorant, and it's hateful rhetoric. Disappearing makes it sound like we are the Gestapo. But, I've been doing this since 1984. ICE is doing the same thing we've done for 4 decades under every presidential administration except for Joe Biden. ICE wasn't able to enforce the law for 4 years. So I guess the left was comfortable saying, okay, ICE isn't out there arresting illegal aliens. You're not enforcing immigration law. And all of a sudden they're shocked because we're back enforcing the law. We're holding the last administration accountable. But when they use the term disappearing people, that helps to feed the hateful rhetoric against ICE. And that's why, one of the reasons we have over 1,000% increase on attacks on ICE. And not just ICE agents, their spouses, their children. So, you know, this false narrative, this hateful rhetoric is causing ICE agents to be attacked every day on the streets. And we're at a point now where the ones enforcing the law, the bad guys, and the ones who break the law, the victims.
Borders are Tom Homan on Newsmax, doing the same thing they've done for 40 years, except for the 4 years that Joe Biden was president. That pretty much says it all right there. It's amazing how all of a sudden you hear everyone on one side of the aisle using all the same terminology that you've never once heard before. And in this case, it doesn't even make sense, right? Disappearing people. Now it's a talking point like saving democracy, extreme MAGA, disappearing people. According to the White House calendar, President Trump has no scheduled events today outside of his daily briefing and hosting another dinner event at the White House tonight. Here in Florida, jury selection in the federal trial of Ryan Ruth, charged with attempting to assassinate President Trump at his West Palm Beach golf club last year, will wrap up today. More than 80 potential jurors have already been excused for issues ranging from scheduling conflicts to their love or their hatred of President Trump. Opening statements are expected to happen tomorrow, and again, Ruth is representing himself, and again, the Trump-appointed judge, Eileen Cannon, is going to have her hands full there. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirming that the president will attend the New York Yankees game tomorrow, the 24th anniversary of the September 11th terror attacks. On Wall Street, the stock markets opened in the green again this morning after closing at all new record highs across the board Tuesday, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average at 45,711. This morning's Producer Price Index for the month of August showing an unexpected 0.1% decline in wholesale prices. Analysts had expected a 0.3% increase. So that's a big difference. Tomorrow we'll get the Consumer Price Index showing prices at the consumer level. Even more important, both of these will be carefully weighed by the Fed as to whether we get a 0.25 percentage point cut in interest rates or a 0.5% cut, which, by the way, is expected to happen next week. Be sure to keep up with all of the day's news and breaking developments throughout the day on Newsmax, N2, and at Newsmax.com. Of course, also make sure you're streaming on Newsmax Plus. I'm Tony Marino. As always, I appreciate you listening. Continue to share the Newsmax Daily with pretty much anybody that you can. Enjoy the rest of your day and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.